John chapter 1 conclusion. After finishing the book of Genesis, I every time want to still say Genesis chapter. Oh, it's John chapter 1. Right. So we have recorded started recording this morning here concerning why the old knew Jesus in Genesis. And then I did the introduction to the book of John, why, to whom it was written, the why, the when, as I believe. And then we did chapter 1, and it's 51 verses, a pretty heavy chapter. And sure, I didn't get to touch on absolutely every aspect. I mean, it's still a lot. It's a gold mine, like those gold mines in Johannesburg, which goes to more than 2 kilometers deep. The deepest gold mines in the world. You can just go down and down and still find more gold, and you can go on down this and still find more. But yeah, I want to get to all 66 books in the Bible in about 10 years maybe, and not 5,000. So bear with me. Right, so the conclusion to this book. There's a lot that it is about. I think that the first thing I want to kind of just again point out is the fact that how John is connecting Genesis chapter 1 to John chapter 1. Now we do know that Genesis wasn't written in chapters and verses, and the same for John. Okay, so but then the first episode, to put it like that, the first thing mentioned in Genesis, the first thing mentioned here in John, the first idea of creation, of God being, of Jesus being, right? He's not a secret, he is there. Right, God, right? So the Bible doesn't go around about explaining that God exists. It's just taking God's existence for granted. Like, I mean, I can't stand here and not take God's existence for granted. I've said this again today. I mean, just again, look at this beauty. Even those people having their pre-wedding shoots or whatever they're having down there, right? I mean, look at this beauty. You can't see. There's a wedding, like a preceding wedding. So it's people in love, right? That kind of idea. Where does the concept of love comes from? It comes from God. Where does the creation of this beauty comes from the concept of God. Even that lizard sitting up there in the tree kind of were most likely bothered by the fact that we are standing here recording. Well, sorry for you, Mr. or Mrs. Lizard up there, but it's a little lizard anyhow. Okay, so all of this, you see and you just know God has to be. Okay, and so when there's this connection made here, it's not so much in this case of that God has or Jesus has to be, it's just that Jesus is, right, that God is. And then more, he is not just, he is with God, but he's God. Okay, I explained that. You can go and listen to it again when I look through in the chapters and the verse. And again, I want to tell the Jehovah's Witnesses, be honest and stop lying to people, stop deceiving people, stop being Jacobs. You are not a Christian sect, you're a Christian cult. You're not even a Christian cult. You are not a Christian sect, neither are you a Christian. You are just cult, that's all you are. Stop lying to people, you are not. You don't believe in Jesus God. You are just liars, that's all you are, okay? So stop doing that. My message again to them. I think maybe my sister Baptist from this chapter would be to stop making so much about John the Baptist. Just because it's called the Baptist doesn't, and this chapter is not, I mean this book is not even called the Baptist, it's just called John. So don't make so much about that, okay? It's not nearly on the same level as Jehovah's Witnesses, okay? So Baptist here kills me. Anyhow, right? Stop, just, focus on baptism of the Spirit. I've pointed as well out the fact that so there's a connection. So why are these connections? Because ultimately it points towards its primary audience, which would be the religious leaders of John's day. Speak of Jesus' day, actually, not even John's day, because John survived them, but of Jesus' day in Jerusalem. So this is written by John in the 30s, and to the people there. That is why he did not speak about John the Baptist, but of John, and where he spoke about himself not as John, but as the beloved disciple. So as not to get, they would have known him as the beloved disciple, not as John. So not to create that confusion. So this is the reason why he is, according to me, from the text, why this was written there and then. So these things is more than just trying to convince, but it's a lot to do with explaining that we all needed convincing. Okay, we all needed convincing. We all didn't know. We all didn't believe. We all didn't understand. So, laying the foundations to take away this fact from the leadership that they are the ones who ultimately gave over Jesus to be crucified. To take away that stumbling block. Now, people interpret John therefore as very anti-Semitic because he spoke of the Jews sent them. So he's like, the Jews. And I explained that this is not about the Jews as the Israelites, right? Because Nathanael is an Israelite in whom there's no deceit. So it's not about Jews as Israelites, but it's about this group inside the Israelites. So it's a group of people inside the Israelites called the Jews who are those who rejected him. But then there's a group of people like the world rejected, right? The world and this group, the Jews, they're rejected. But then there are those born of God, not of yourself, not a choice your parents made, not a choice because you're born in a certain culture, not because of your going to church, not because of a choice you made, but by God, of God. God is the reason why. The Spirit gave you a new heart, okay? We'll still see that in chapter 3, we'll get back to that. So in the conclusion, I want to focus as well, therefore, on not so much all this, these proofs of Jesus as the Messiah, Jesus as God kind of idea, which is very clear in there, like all the connections, the light, let there be light, the Spirit on him. There's so many connections. The next day, exactly like it happened in the first scene in Genesis, exactly the same way. Right? All these things are not there by mistake. It's not a mistake that he said, and the next day he went to there, and the next day he went there, and the next day he went there. They're not mistakes. It is by design so. Because this is whom he's writing to. They would understand all of this, to connect all those days to the creation days. Simple and straightforward. So, they're going to see bigger things. Jacob coming down on them, sons of Israel. Jacob, Israel, sons of Israel. Seeing all these greater things. If just the fact that for Nathanael, that seeing, that hearing that he's like a true Israelite sitting on, Jesus saw him sitting under a fig tree, right? Not important what he was doing there, but the result of it is his understanding that Jesus is the Son of God and the King of Israel. If that was enough for Nathanael, then all the greater things that Jesus said, I will still show you. You see greater things than these. The little was enough, then how much more the greater ought to be enough. So you have no excuse. Okay? So John is getting to the Jewish leadership here, like saying, you have no excuse to believe that Jesus is your King, that Jesus is the Son of God, that Jesus is your Messiah. No excuse. Absolutely no excuse. So what is the choice you're going to make? He's telling the high priest, he's telling the other rulers, friends of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, he's telling them. And lots of them did believe. And I think a lot has to do with the Gospel of John, in the way he brought it, in the way he explained that we didn't understand, but now we know. We didn't know. Believe, he believed. These concepts, important.